Hey everybody, I'm here with Zach Cooper, who is a principal gaming product manager with Microsoft. How are you doing this evening, Zach?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. As I mentioned to you earlier, my apartment's kind of a mess right now, so I pretty much have to use this background. But looks like you've got a nice little background of your own, like a cabin that you got going on.
Yeah, you're at the
Yeah,
beach. Better than my
yeah.
cabin. Sure.
I like the beach. It's pretty nice. But before we get started with your questions, I don't know if you've seen any of my previous interviews, but I like to kind of do like these blind rankings and stuff like that. But I'm going to do something a little bit different with you. I'm actually going to do something called keep or keep and cut. So I'm going to give you two options, two games here, and you're going to keep one and then cut one. And then I've got a list of games to go down from that you're going to keep or cut. But it's kind of weird. So I'll just show you. So these are keep and cut most anticipated upcoming games. So
okay. It's gonna be hard, I'm sure.
Yeah. So first up, you have Silent Hill F or Jurassic World Evolution 3.
Oh, my son loves Jurassic World, so I'm gonna have to keep that one. I love Silent Hill, but Jurassic World's gonna stay.
Okay, so Jurassic World's gonna stay, and then now it's Jurassic World Evolution 3 or the Outer Worlds 2.
I love the Outer Worlds, so I'm gonna have to send my son's game off to the farm. Yeah, Outer Worlds 2 is exciting. Yeah.
Outer Worlds 2.
Yep.
Okay, so Outer Worlds 2 or Borderlands 4.
Oh, both are good games. I've heard a lot of good buzz around both, but I definitely was a big fan of Borderlands 2. Played a lot of co-op of Borderlands 3, so I'm gonna go with Borderlands 4.
Okay, Borderlands 4 or Metroid Prime 4.
I love Nintendo, but it's just not my normal, day-to-day console. So I'm gonna stick with Borderlands 4.
Okay, Borderlands. Only a couple more now.
Oh, it's fine.
Borderlands 4 or Elder Scrolls 6.
I mean, you've touched on my favorite franchise.
Yeah.
Scrolls, Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind. Morrowind was one of the few games that I started modding, and like the spark of, hey, you could be a game developer, you can make things started. So it's gonna be hard to beat Elder Scrolls. So I'm sticking with Elder Scrolls 6 or swapping Elder Scrolls 6. Yeah.
Elder Scrolls 6. All right, this is the last one.
All right.
Elder Scrolls 6 or GTA 6.
I knew that was it. Man,
yeah.
That's a rough decision. That's rough. Both are going to be awesome. I'll say that I am more excited, even though GTA 6 looks amazing, more excited about another Elder Scrolls, mainline Elder Scrolls game. There's been, so many awesome mods with Skyrim, and the Oblivion remaster is great, but a new Elder Scrolls game's top of my stack of most anticipated games in general. So I'll stick with that.
All right, Elder Scrolls 6, it is then most anticipated game. Yeah, I mean, Elder Scrolls 6 and GTA 6, I mean, both games of people have been waiting for another entry for like a decade now, right?
Yeah.
But let's get started with your questions. So my first question here is, you attended Cascadia College from 2005 to 2006, where you studied web development. What were your career goals at the time?
Oh, I honestly know if I had career goals. Honestly, I was my background, kind of lifelong gamer, really enjoyed playing games as a kid, kind of to a degree that, I joined clans and, Return to Castle and scrimmaged and participated in like practices for matches that were upcoming after school. Like I was really into gaming. And then I got into Unreal Tournament and Morrowind. It both kind of sparked this idea of creating something. But at the time, games weren't like, go to this gaming college, it'll allow you to make game. It was still kind of this stigma, and it still is today to some degree, but the stigma of games aren't a career. That's just what you do for leisure. And so I liked the technical side of like configuring different things in the mods, and I got more into kind of learning programming languages kind of on my own. And so going to college, it was like, oh, there's web development. That's interesting. Maybe I'd like to go do that as a career. That was probably the amount of thought that young me went into it. Is it seems interesting. Let me try that.
Yeah, you mentioned Unreal and Morrowind kind of like sparked your interest in modding. What was it about those games that really got you interested in modding and eventually making games in general?
Yeah, I think the three kind of Return to Castle Wolfenstein, Unreal Tournament 2004, I believe, and Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind were like the three games that I found that their toolkit, their like modding tools were really accessible. There's a lot of like tutorials online. It was really interesting to go use that. I guess Return to Castle so maybe the least because it used this thing called GTK Radiant. It was an editor, definitely a lot of capabilities, but was you required a lot of learning up front to kind of get that working. But I think the Morrowind modding side was more of the area that I kind of was able to create some mods and find my stride. But it was just a thing that was advertised alongside the game, something fun to do, and I played a bunch of mods and added them to my games and really liked them, and so it's like, oh, I'd love to try to create something. And I never created anything cool. I never was like, oh yeah, and then I made this amazing mod, but it was something that kind of sparked this cool, let me try to learn, let me build some things, do some texture packs, other stuff like that got me interested in kind of creating stuff.
Cool. So your first kind of big role in the video game industry was with VMC, but before your work with VMC, you worked as a network administrator and a technical support associate for a few different places. How did these roles kind of support your transition into gaming?
Yeah, like my transition into gaming was all luck. So
Really?
I think they definitely supported it, but the tech support role was like a call center working on phones. It's like BlackBerry admins. The first Palm pilots were the rage and had all sorts of bugs, so they were calling in and was doing like online tech or not online, over the phone tech support. And so it was all kind of around like technology is the future. How do I help other people with technology, which kind of has some through lines to testing into production. So I think that helped that. But a lot of how I got into gaming was that VMC job was very much like a flexible hours, show up and test games. And that kind of built itself into, hey, I have these skills that I can apply to other jobs. I would definitely say my first kind of real game development job was at Midway Games. VMC provided a lot of great skills and capabilities, though, and I loved a lot of the different products I worked on there.
Gotcha. My next question was actually about VMC. You touched on it a little bit, but at VMC, you were a software tester and a software test engineer, and you worked on a few Xbox 360 titles. You already touched on it a little bit, but how did these roles kind of help you lay the foundations for your career eventually, maybe, as you mentioned, transitioning into Midway and then beyond?
Yeah. So my first game testing was at VMC. Still was learning a ton of kind of what that meant and skills involved and all of that. And I was part of a group that was testing the Xbox Live Arcade games there, and doing kind of pre-cert testing and validation. And so I think I'm credited on three or four Live Arcade games. And that was awesome. It was like the first games that I shipped where my name's in the credit. I worked with developers kind of from afar. We were very much like, do run these tests, give these results, but still met some of them and were able to dig into some more gnarly bugs. And it just sparked the, hey, this is a job, people have a career here, there's complexities, but there was always like, we can, what's a different way to approach this, or what tools can we use? There's always more and more kind of, we were pushing on there. And I think that helped me, always stay curious and kind of, when I moved into game development studios, see the opportunity kind of grow as far as what tests can do to help make games better, and help provide data that helps games get built in a more effective way.
Gotcha. From 2009 to 2012, you worked in multiple kind of QA leadership or supervisory roles. Like you had mentioned with Midway, Surreal Software, and WB Games. How would you describe working in a QA setting, and what are some skills that you picked up in these roles?
Yeah, my LinkedIn's kind of weird because Midway Games actually went bankrupt, and our studio, Surreal Software, got acquired by Warner Brothers Games as part of that. So I technically worked for that studio for a different duration than I worked for Midway, because I had a new parent publisher owner, right? Mm-hmm. And then I transferred to a different Warner Brothers studio, Monolith Productions, which is why there's that. So there's this weird stint, but I really worked at two studios, Surreal Software and Monolith Productions. And your question was kind of what I did there and kind of how that set me up as far as like core skills from QA. Is that correct?
Yeah, kind of like, what was it like working in a QA environment? And then yes, what are some skills that you picked up and whatnot?
Yeah, both were different quite a bit, like between Surreal Software and Monolith. I was there's a bunch of different terms in the industry, but embedded QA is probably the most, or development QA is probably the right framing. And so that's QA teams that are working directly as part of the game studio. So I wasn't a publishing QA. I wasn't like validating deliverables from the studio. I was helping the studio daily make sure that they had a high quality daily build that helps their art team and their design team, their engineering teams, audio team, etc., be able to make the content, make the systems to build the game. Surreal Software was a large AAA studio. Definitely had worked on the game. This is Vegas. Never shipped. Was announced. There's shows that had worked on the game for a while. So I joined, learned a ton, became a lead there after a little bit of time as a senior QA tester. And that was just a lot of like learning how games are made, learning how to work with people in that environment. And then that was kind of the spark there too, where I saw like the mixture between QA and automation and engineering as a way to really like scale how you can really make games better and like provide data to teams so they know like, hey, we need to stabilize more, or we, there's areas that aren't getting utilized or played in playtest, that type of thing. Monolith, on the other hand, was a pretty small team, and I'd been, was further along in my career and had some more experience kind of building games. I joined that team. It was about 25 people, and that was a team where we play tested the build every day. We all wore many hats. We also lived there, a lot of crunch to make our game. But I think we all kind of had this shared passion around, really achieving as much as we could with the team and the tech we were using. And so in that, I definitely kind of scaled more into leading into how can I help the team, how can I enable the team to do their best work. It was, getting the build system working great, making sure that our asset builds lined up properly. So each morning, everybody had the content they needed, making sure that the automation for, different SKUs, PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, games, Windows Live, were working, and we were getting kind of a broader scale number of hours played by, automated machines, to feel confident that we were hitting our quality targets. And learned a bunch. We definitely had some bugs at launch, but it felt like I was building more of the core skills of like what small teams can do, how a passionate team that really loves their project can lean in and play test and tune and find the way to build it together. Our creative director said he was the editor and we're all the authors. So a lot of agency was given to the team to, I made test maps, I tuned weapons, those type of things. A lot of team members would actually contribute to different discipline work, whether it be code changes or content changes. So I think that like that opportunity really ignited a lot of like the passion of like, this is game development. This is how you make a game as a team. And so yeah, that definitely was an awesome opportunity, kind of learning on that front.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple times in a few questions data collection in QA. How important is, I guess, collecting data as a QA tester?
Yeah, I think you can have a bunch of different views of what QA's purpose is in game development. You can think of it just as like they test the final build to make sure it's good. They sign off that it matches what the publisher wants, or they matches what the gamer wants, right? But to me, in a lot of ways, especially with development QA, it's about providing data and insights to help influence decision-making within the studio. So a QA team could provide more analytical, hey, there's the crash rates of this platform are rising. We really need to spend some time in the next few sprints stabilizing this if we're going to demo it to potential publishers, or if we're going to do a bigger play test with our players. This is a concern. It's raising data to help influence plans. And then they also QA, and a lot of what makes QA great is it's often people who play games a lot and embody the players that we're building for, and they're playing the game the most out of the studio, so they have a formed opinion on the design, on the feel, and they're providing data on like, hey, this isn't fun, or this is interesting, or if I play this for an hour, it's great, but if I play it for 10 hours, it's boring. And so listening to QA is kind of a signal, maybe not the only one. There's a lot of different ways to gather data. Is a great tool to kind of help ensure you're not building just for what your creative director wants or what your dev team wants, but also thinking about how it's going to be a high quality experience that's fun for players. So I think QA and production and many other roles provide data and information that the team could help kind of consume and understand how to react to when kind of building their game.
Going forward, from 2010 to 2012, well, also, the time frame can be different, as you mentioned, because of how set up on your LinkedIn. But you worked at Monolith Productions for a while as a QA supervisor, and you worked on Gotham City Imposters. And Gotham City Imposters is actually a game that I played a lot in in middle school, and that's because as a middle schooler, you don't really have a lot of money to buy games, so it was a free game, and it was a fun game to play. And I had a lot of fun with it, and just kind of looking at your LinkedIn and looking that you worked on it kind of like sparked memories and brought back memories of the game, and how fun it was for me at the time. But as a QA tester who's constantly working on the game, does that ever, I guess, take some of the fun out of making a game?
Yeah. So I think it depends on the product, right? So and also just like it's awesome. I love running into people that it's kind of a niche game. There was a pretty hardcore community for a while, I mean, when it was a premium title, and then for sure when it became free to play on Steam, there's still, I think, even though it's not listed, I think there's still people that play and do their own groups. I played a few and it was really fun. So to me, there's always such a thing as your work becomes the thing you're focusing on from a work analytical perspective becomes so engrossing that you can't really play it as a gamer. But I think it's very contextual to how your experience was with that. So I really look back fondly on my experience at Monolith and with the team and building the product. And I enjoyed kind of the work, even though at the time it was stressful and we worked a lot of hours and there was a lot of like decisions that we had to make to get to where we ended up being as a team. I still loved that game and played that game in playtest and had fun. And I knew that was a spark of why that was going to be a good game, because throughout it, I was having fun playing it. That was my genre of game. Doesn't mean I always have to love the game I'm making, but I definitely would still play. If that game was popular today and people, I would still jump into that. Whereas I worked on the Forza franchise for a long period of time. I'm sure you have questions for that.
Yeah, I do.
And I enjoy Forza games, and I played a bunch of them. But there was one that I worked on, my first one, which was Forza Motorsport 5, and it shipped at the beginning of the Xbox One. It was a day-and-date launch title. And we spent a lot of time getting it out the door, and I spent many, many, many hours staring at pixels on tracks and on cars and making sure things worked well. And I'd kind of seen my fill, hundreds of hours played, many hours debugged of cars on tracks. And so I never could really play that game as a gamer because I always saw the bugs, the thing we couldn't fix on the horizon of a tree popping in, or a graphical issue that I was really hoping we could fix, but we didn't get there. So it just kind of matters on the project and your own ability to kind of have fun with it and remember it's a game, versus let your work brain seep in and be like analyzing the screen and thinking about all the things that could have been. Then it becomes a little bit less fun because you're in work mode. You're thinking about it as a work thing, when usually when I'm playing games at home, I'm wanting to have fun and not turn my QA or game developer brain on. I'm just relax, right? So
I do have a lot of questions about Forza.
But many years there for sure.
Before we go into Forza, from what I remember about Gotham City Imposters, there's the Batman faction and then the kind of Joker faction. Did you have like a preference for one or the other?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, they both were so zany. I think I enjoyed some of the Joker faction because of just some of the weird things they would say as their quips.
Yeah.
And some of like the outfits and stuff. I mean, both were. I have posters up right behind the screen of Batman
that's cool.
Joker for Gotham City Imposters. Both had such awesome like outfits that it was always hard to choose. But I think if I had to choose one, that would, like, if you could only play one to your earlier keep or cut, it would definitely be Joker for sure.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of keep and cut, I have another one.
All right, let's go.
A little bit. So, we just talked a lot about Gotham City Imposters. So I've got keep and cut superhero games.
Oof. Okay.
Luckily, I didn't put Gotham City Imposters in it. So
that would win. It would be a nice, quick conversation.
So, okay, keep and cut Infamous, and then Spider-Man 2 in 2023.
So I didn't play a ton of Spider-Man 2, but I will say this: that in its they're both amazing. And Infamous is in Seattle, and I have obviously know a bunch of people over there and really like that game. But there's some amazing beauty that comes in Spider-Man and the physics of swinging as Spider-Man through New York. It was a really cool experience. So I'm gonna have to go with with Spider-Man, just from like I didn't even really have to play it. I could just swing around and
Yeah.
awestruck at the beauty. So yeah, I would definitely lean towards that.
And you know something about Spider-Man, both all three of the games, that I've always really liked is that in any other open world game, you would just want to fast travel from point A to point B. Not
Yeah.
in the Spider-Man games. You want to swing and stuff. But all right. So Spider-Man 2 or Batman Arkham City?
Oh man. So I played a bunch of Asylum. I think I played a decent amount of City. I'm gonna go with Arkham City because I worked at WB Games where Rocksteady
Yeah.
is. So I'm, got to go to the home team there. But also there's a grittiness and like they just envisioned Gotham in a way that was so just like the,
Mhm.
the dark side
Yeah.
was really well quantified. It's just super awesome to kind of see the detail and everything they did. And I would say like both are great, but I really did love grappling around as Batman too, and like swooping in and the stealth kills and all that. So or stealth knockouts.
Yeah.
Batman kill anybody. So yeah, I'll lean with Batman on that one.
Okay. So we've got Arkham City 2 or Marvel versus Capcom 2. I mean, I didn't mean to say Arkham City 2. Arkham City, Batman Arkham City, or Marvel versus
Okay, cool.
Capcom
Like
2.
I don't remember there being a sequel.
Yeah,
To Arkham City,
there's so many twos in this list that
yeah.
I've said. So sorry.
I'm gonna stick with Arkham City. I like beat 'em ups. I love playing them. A buddy of mine and I've done like let's play all the fighting tournament games as like a
Yeah,
co-op tournament together. That's great. But that game's only really something I would consume with friends, like the fighters. Whereas I could spend a lot of time immersing myself in Arkham City on my own for sure.
okay. This last one may be a little bit of a curveball, but
Yeah.
Batman Arkham City or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge?
Okay, so it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge, like the one that came out on Xbox and PlayStation
Yeah.
4 and like all that. It's got the co-op you can play online and all that.
Yep.
Yep, that one wins. I played through that with my
Yeah.
co-op group. Super fun. Really enjoy that. And definitely Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was my like childhood. So definitely
Really.
towards that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really fun game, and the team that made that, they're working on like a Marvel game of the same
That's cool.
like genre that I'm really looking forward to. But back to the questions now.
Okay.
So in 2012, if your LinkedIn's correct, you started at Turn 10 Studios as a
Yep.
lead software development engineer before taking on a producer position in 2016. How did the producer role kind of differ from software development and QA roles that you had held in the past?
Yeah, good question. So yeah, I was lead software development engineer and test. A lot of the same responsibilities, kind of being a test lead. I did lean into and utilize and write more automation.
Mhm.
There's a lot of performance automation and build automation stuff that we needed to do there. But that was very similar in a lot of ways to Monolith and kind of like making sure my charter was ensure the game's high quality
Mhm.
and working across the board. And that a lot of what I really enjoyed about Turn 10 was there's an obsession of around 4K 60 and really high performance frame rate and high visuals is kind of cutting edge. And so there's a lot of kind of automation and testing and learning more about performance and diving into challenges with like why we weren't running at frame rate in certain areas that helped me learn more about kind of how game engines work and kind of peeling back some of the layers there, which was really cool. And then my transition to production wasn't necessarily like, hey, I want to be a producer. It was more of just a transition that made sense from how the company was viewing test and opportunities within the studio to continue to grow in my career. And I worked with a lot of the similar teams. So I got a lot of grace from them to learn how to be a producer when I had been a tester for so long. And I use a metaphor that I've used a few times, but when I was a tester or a test lead or an estet, I definitely felt like it was about the deep details. So like I'm in a submarine at the bottom of the ocean, scouring
Mhm.
the ocean floor, and as a producer, I needed to be in a plane above the ocean, seeing the road, seeing miles ahead. And so there's a little bit of a journey, kind of transitioning from a test mindset to a production mindset, but they are one and the same, trying to make sure that the ocean's great. I don't know where the metaphor goes, but hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of what I was doing as a lead estet was I managed a team of 15 people. They had engineering, art, and like functional test backgrounds, and we had sprint planning that we would do. We'd be thinking about how our test deliverables and criteria matched up to development teams' needs. And so I was already kind of planning work and thinking about dependencies, a lot of the core things that are really foundational to a producer. So I liked that stuff. It's like interest that. So when I talked with the production team about kind of opportunities, a lot of those skills, I was like, oh, cool, I can keep doing that. So I moved over to production with that. I was working, on a lot of the things that are parallel to production, right? Like sprint planning, dependency management, a lot of that stuff that was like pretty core to what I was doing, managing that test team and thinking about how their deliverables would match with the development team. When I talked to the production team about the opportunity of moving over into production, a lot of those things that I had already done were core foundational skills of being a producer. It felt like a good fit for me to kind of keep moving into that role. So I became a producer, and a lot of what I leaned into was the tech side. So kind of more of the Forza tech engine, tools, automation, build side of the house, which in a lot of ways was what I was supporting and kind of most interested in as a test lead. So I leveraged the knowledge of the tech and just kind of grew my different discipline career, if that makes sense, which it was an awesome opportunity to have the same team, the same product, the same kind of technology base. And I was given the opportunity to learn how to do a different role within that team. I think if I had started it somewhere else and became a producer after years of being QA, it would have been harder for me to kind of naturally transition between one and the other. So I really look at that as an awesome opportunity in my second stage of my career, which is, more product and production leadership.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned it before, but at Turn 10, you worked a lot on the Forza series. What are some challenges that may have come? Forza's a racing game that's kind of grounded in realism or bound by physics of real life. What are some challenges that come with that basis in realism, if that makes sense?
Yeah. There's a few, I think, key things. One is it's based in real life on real world tracks. And so there's an expectation for most tracks, or some that are fictional, but there's an expectation that those tracks match real life, or like are very much a representation of that. So the team will go, to the destination, depending on the Forza. Newer ones, they were doing laser scanning, a lot of advanced technology. Older ones, they do more photo reference with, just photography. So they gather a bunch of reference and they build out this track. And as QA, in a lot of cases, you're thinking about how does that match reality? Is the car behaving right in the environment, and is the car physics working well to represent kind of the challenges of different environments, and add in things like weather and tire pressure and heat, like all that would add complexity. So I think that's a challenge, just making it feel like it's a racing sim, a real life racing sim. And the other thing from a technology perspective is when you're playing a game and you're loading things, that takes time. And so you have, if you play Gears of War, the older Gears of War, you'll see Marcus Phoenix put his, hand up and walk real slow. Those were kind of masking loading the next chunk of the world, right, as you're transitioning between areas. Or the elevator scenes where you're going a long elevator ride, and that's loading. That's just time to load the rest of the environment, right? And so in racing, it really isn't an elevator scene or a cinematic dialogue where you can talk. You're racing quickly around a big environment. And so a lot of the streaming and being able to make sure that the environment loaded properly, you didn't see it stream in, was pushing the engine and the hardware and everything kind of to its limits, as the art team was wanting to look as beautiful as possible. So that dynamic of like, can it load fast and just look great? How do we find all the right compromise there? Produced a lot of interesting bugs and a lot of interesting kind of challenges to kind of work through. But that was definitely one of like the more unique, I'd say, things that was specific to racing games, not just Forza, but yeah, definitely games that have you going really fast in an environment need really great streaming tech to succeed.
Just to add on to that, I guess, loading screen or hiding of the loading screen. One of my favorite ones right now is in an action game when you have a character shimmy between two walls. I don't know if you've seen that happening a lot, but that's something that always comes to mind. But
Yep.
you've worked on 3 Forza Horizon titles, and then 5 Forza Motorsport titles, in multiple roles. What are some challenges and ways that your team sought to be innovative with each new title?
Ooh, that's a good question. And I want to clarify, my main focus was on Forza Motorsport, and I was driving a lot of either the test or production initiatives there. But I worked on the when I was a producer, and in some roles in the test, I did work on the technology side, which was shared between the studios. And so all of kind of my Horizon experience is much more around the technology side, engine sharing, challenges like that. But yeah, innovation is definitely a good topic to kind of bring up because it was always, uh, a balance, right? You're trying to bring your players along, ensure that they have the features that they expect between each iteration, and continue to push kind of on that. I'd say the biggest area, just my own personal opinion, everybody at the studio probably has a different view, is graphical innovation. I think continuing to push and ensure it really looks awesome on all the different devices and really shines as a graphical showcase was where we spent a lot of our time.
Only a few more questions here until we're wrapped up. But from 2019 to 2022, you worked as a program manager and eventually senior program manager for Microsoft in the Xbox developer experience. This is, at least from my understanding, working more so on the.
You're asking kind of more about the difference between working in the developer division versus on a game. Is that right? Yeah. So I think there's some parallels for sure. I mean, when I worked at Turn 10 and we worked on build systems and working with the platform to ship games in that space. So in a lot of cases, we were testing the platform and testing those features and how they worked. And so when I worked on the platform side, it was just kind of being on the other side of the fence, but definitely working on a broader ecosystem. So I think the bigger change is when you're building a game, you're laser focused on shipping a game. Everyone you're working with is oriented towards that as the North Star. When you're building a platform or an ecosystem for game development, you're thinking about all these different needs and scenarios and ways to enrich the environment for game developers, and there can be different contention between that or different priorities around that. So I think the broader view meant like I worked with a ton of game developers now on their needs across the ecosystem when I was on the platform or developer experience team, and that really showed me how same and different a lot of things are with each studio, and how to find ways to build products that both achieve the need but also account for some of the different variations that a developer might need. An example I'll give is when I worked at Turn 10, I would work on the tools team and would be thinking about how we make this workflow great for our art team. But our art team had a very specific goal. They also had leaders that had very specific opinions. If I were then to upscale that and say, how do I make this tool for every art team at every game studio, I'd have to think a lot more about different compromises I'd have to make, because I can't solve needs when they're in conflict or when there's distinction. So there's a lot of challenges there, I think, that were really fun to work on around how do I build tools and capabilities that enable developers across the ecosystem to succeed when they have different needs. Whereas the studio, I think in a lot of cases, they obviously had different needs within the work, but the laser focus on one product meant it was kind of an easy razor to work against when trying to think about priorities and how to build stuff. So those would be the biggest things. And then shipping a game, you're playing a game every day. You're building towards that experience. Whereas the platform is really around technology and scenarios to help developers, but really around technology and quality and building that foundation for the developers to do their best work there. So it was much more technical and in the deep end than necessarily like building tech within the game studio, which always had the purpose of enabling that great game experience or artistic vision of its creators, right?
That was a great response. But this is my last, I guess, question about your experience here, and I think it's important, I guess, given the state of the industry. But from 2022 to 2024, you worked for ProbablyMonsters at Barge Studios before returning to Microsoft in November of last year. Both ProbablyMonsters and Microsoft have experienced layoffs. As someone who's been in the video game industry for nearly 20 years now, what advice would you give to, I guess, job seekers or people who may have been affected by these layoffs who are trying to search for work?
I've experienced both being a part of a layoff or being a survivor, still in the team as layoffs happened all throughout my career. it sucks. It's definitely not a great feeling on either side. It's, this is your livelihood. This is what you're trying to do to provide for yourself and your family. So I definitely don't want to just say, oh yeah, go do this and it'll work out. Like it's a really challenging environment to be in, and there's a real toll that happens on both parties, those affected and those still kind of working in those spaces when these things happen. I'll index more on the people looking for work, especially early in career. I think knowing that the environment and the industry is in a state of change, and a lot of companies are adjusting how they approach team sizes or projects. Really trying to find ways to differentiate yourself, thinking about trying to, especially when you're in college, trying to learn more from mentors and get insights on like what areas are in the industry are matching your passion, but also areas of growth from a job perspective. There's some parts of games that there maybe is more people that have the capability to do the work than there are jobs available. And there's a variety of range of that. There's very specialized roles if people are interested that have more of a demand still. And so finding ways to kind of just be arm yourself with data to know kind of, hey, I'm going to be an artist or an engineer or a programmer, and I'm going to specialize in this thing, knowing kind of the outcome of that from a career opportunity perspective, like leaning into mentors, looking at market research and other data that provides more insights on kind of the industry. I think it's good. Just be data informed as you're kind of wanting to look into a career. And then there's a ton of events and like meetups and networking. The industry is a big, small place. It's many people know each other. So I think networking in a lot of ways, even when you're early in career, meeting people, going to game jams, trying to always keep building and finding ways, you'll find opportunities you maybe never thought existed. And so I think that's like, instead of looking at as I get my degree, I then apply to jobs and then I work on games. It's really like, how are you building games every day? And your degree is a stamp of your knowledge and the capabilities of your craft, and the indie projects and your game jams are also proof of that. Kind of always being in that mindset, I think helps when it comes to differentiating. Like, hey, look, I'm new, I'm early in career, but I have all this energy, and look at all these things I've worked on and done. I think from like a game jam, I'm having fun building. Here's my student project, kind of showing up in your best view of like what you built. I think can really help differentiate. I have a lot of thoughts on resumes and other stuff, but ultimately like that, networking, always building, kind of highlight the differentiation there is really good. Something I've seen people succeed at even early in career, but it is tough right now. There's a lot of people that are looking for roles, and they're going to apply to roles that are more junior than them because they need the job, right? So there's, as a hiring manager, dealing with maybe a mid-level role with someone that has much more experience, and someone who has what's on the job description and the trade-offs that come with that.
All right. Well, thank you for the advice. That was great advice. But before we end the interview here, I just have a couple more questions, but they're personal, like fun questions. Sure. Not personal, but like more fun questions. But I gave you the keep and cut questions, but now I'm going to do a blind ranking. So I've got a prompt here and 5 things for the prompt, but you're not going to know what each of the 5 is in advance. I'm going to give you one after the other, and you have to rank them 1 through 5. So you're going to blind rank these 5 racing games from worst to best. 1 being best, 5 being worst. I don't have any of the Forza games or anything on here. So, but number 1 is Need for Speed Underground.
Okay. So I need to blind rank this without knowing the others. I just get a
The first one is
Need for Speed Underground was. I don't want to put it in 1. I remember playing a ton of that. I really enjoyed the Need for Speed games. Definitely more arcadey. Definitely had more of that style. I don't remember Underground if that one had a lot of like the getting chased by police and that whole mechanic. But I love that in those games. So I'll put it 2 for now.
2,
but I might regret that. Yeah.
Your next game is Mario Kart 8.
Okay. I like Mario Kart. I enjoy it. I played it a bunch of kids. I definitely I feel like it's definitely an amazing Mario Kart. If you put in the N64 Mario Kart, it would have hit the nostalgia vibe more. So I'll put that one at a 4. And this is the 1 through 5 of awesome games. There's none of these that are going to be bad in my opinion. So I'm not saying it's a bad game. It's just putting it lower.
No. Team Sonic Racing.
Okay, so if I were to choose between that and Mario Kart definitely hits both in nostalgia and vibes. And I think Mario Kart, they're both great games. But Mario Kart just scratches the itch on arcade classic. So I'll put Team Sonic Racing at 5.
Team Sonic Racing at 5. All right, Gran Turismo Sport.
You making me rank your Gran Turismo pretty high now. I love Gran Turismo. What was Gran Turismo? Gran Turismo Sport was the PlayStation 4.
I think so. It came out around 2017, 2018. It was must have been PlayStation 4.
So I never played it, just for what it's worth. I never played Sport. We obviously did a lot of research on it, and I saw other people playing, but never picked up myself. But I played a ton of Gran Turismo as a kid, loved the old Gran Turismo games. So I'll say for nostalgia vibe, it's whatever is not number 1 in the list. I think it's 3.
Okay, yeah, 3.
All right, cool. And if it's Gran Turismo's here, you're gonna trap me for making that number 1.
No.
Okay.
Your number 1 is Diddy Kong Racing.
Hey, I'm not mad at that at all. Let's go.
No. Okay. Well, that's it for all of, like, the blind rankings and keeping cuts and stuff like that. But only 2 more questions. This one people seem to think is a trick question. I asked these 2 to everybody. I have a feeling that I know what you might say for this, but what is your favorite game of all time?
Okay, so there's 2, and I'm basically gonna give you a non-answer. There's 2.
Okay.
I'll explain why. So from a single player immersive narrative, I lose myself in the game and I feel like I'm somewhere else. It's gonna be Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. I just played so much of that. I played that on Xbox, where every 100 feet or whatever you get a loading, and then you keep going. I played a ton on PC and loved that. It's definitely one of those nostalgia games where I go back to, and unless I have a ton of mods to kind of modernize it, it's kind of rough around the edges, but loved that game. The amount of just open world adventure, like you can get immersed in books. You can read years of books in that game. There's all sorts of dungeons, and it just the wizard falling from the sky. You get his spell from, like, all these weird events. The Silt Striders and the way you fast travel and all the way that they approach that, and just like the dark, the Dwemer and like all the different like lore around. So it was awesome. So I love that game. I really liked playing the Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind expansion that kind of did an homage remaster in that. That was really awesome as well. And from a multiplayer game, I have to go back to kind of one of my favorite games of all time, which is, it just was as a kid. I got into it and I had a bunch of friends that played it, which was Return to Castle Wolfenstein. So it was a multiplayer game. I played it a ton. I played in, Team Warfare League and Cybernetic Athlete Leagues, these like esports cyber leagues that were online. I hosted a tournament when I was a kid in high school, still at home. I did an international tournament and got prizes and built a website, which is kind of one of the things that made me want to go into web development. It's like, I built this website. And that's fun. And it turned out to be, I liked the game, and that's why I was passionate about building the website. So the web development wasn't necessarily my favorite thing, but all of that culminated to me like having to ship prizes to Europe because they won. We got Steel Series and other companies to sponsor it. So I was like super obsessed with this game, right? Like really big fan. So you're getting the long answer of like, that was my favorite game. And so if you ask me like which one would I take an island, well, I can't play that with other people on an island, so I take Morrowind. But yeah, both are great games. I can't choose between them. They're so foundational to kind of my childhood and like also things I care about in my career.
Well, no, I mean, great answer. There's no right or wrong answer. But this is my final question. My final question. Thank you so much for joining and coming on and talking with me. I've really appreciated it. But final question is, before we head off, is there anything else that you'd like to add or say?
I think there's a lot of things in the news around challenges in the industry, and those are real, right? There's real challenges there, but there's still a magic to taking an idea and working with a bunch of creative people to take that idea and make it a real thing, and then shape it out of clay into something that's fun, and then build it to look beautiful, and then market it to be appealing to customers and get it out there in people's hands. The moments that I remember and I cherish in my career are when people that I've worked with have gone and grown in their career, and they've come to me and said, hey, like, I really liked working with you, I learned this skill, and it really helped me. And then also, like, I've had interactions with fans at conferences, or just I remember a friend of my kids ran up to me and made me wanted me to sign a Forza car when I was working, and those moments are really cool, right? Like, I'm a nobody, like, no one needs my signature, but he thought it was cool and he really loved the game, and it was a way he connected with his family that was not in the same state, so he was able to kind of bridge that and bring people together. And I look at games as a connector, and so as a gamer, I love that, but I love being a part of an industry where I can create content that helps bring people together and evoke emotions that they wouldn't otherwise be able to kind of interact with in that way, right? Movies are awesome, music's awesome, but it's very, like, in a lot of ways you're consuming this script, whereas games, you have a lot of control to kind of shape the narrative. So it's challenging, but I think if you're passionate about it and want to get into the industry, don't give up. Like, find ways that you can differentiate yourself, and definitely network and learn from people that have been in the industry to think about how to approach it. And there's definitely a bunch of, especially if you're flexible of where you go and where you live, there's a bunch of places that are rapidly hiring and looking for people too. So I want to see the industry be an amazing place. I want to, as I'm old, still see people making games and seeing, that spark of a creative idea turning into an awesome experience. And so I'm hoping that, seeing the news cycle, seeing some of the challenges doesn't dissuade people from trying to take on that challenge. I see a ton of indie games coming out of people that are solo developers or small teams that are blowing up. There's a lot of different ways to make games. So I'm excited to see the future of that. I'm hoping more and more people still see that as an area to, stoke that passion and to make games that delight gamers, for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody, again, this is Zach Cooper, and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries.